From the Clark Ford Studio in Oxford, Mississippi, MBW Digital proudly presents the Oxford Exxon Podcast.
I'd say thanks for tuning in, but why am I going to give you a round of applause for something you're supposed to do, to be frank?
And now, here are your hosts, Chase Parham.
And broadcast school has really paid off.
And Neil McCready.
I deserve to be on TV.
Welcome to this Thursday edition of the Oxford Exxon Podcast. Chase Parham, Neil McCready, and a couple guests that will take you through the majority of today's show, or frankly, all of today's show as we're going this morning. Chase Goodbread of NFL.com will join us. We'll talk, obviously, NFL draft. That first round happens tonight from Nashville, so he'll give some final thoughts on that. Then we'll kind of feel like old times a little bit, have a very long conversation with Jeffrey Wright. We'll do a lot of topics with him, including draft, Ole Miss baseball, breakfast foods, and much more. So that coming up on today's show. Just a little programming note as well. I talked to sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. I'll tell you that in a second. First, the podcast brought to you in part by the Blue Sky and Oxford Exxon here in Oxford. You know that by now. You know you can get a lunch special for $4.99. Today, that would be chicken and dressing. You can go in. Also, get ribs tonight. Go in, pick them up. They'll be waiting on you. You can wrap them up, have them ready to go. Whatever you would like there at the Oxford Exxon. Again, mobile rewards app, Speed Pass Plus app, and the FCA breakfast this Saturday. Credit Goal is the sponsor of said breakfast. That's at 8:30 at the Manning Center. The Kessinger family are the special guest this year for that. You can find out more or purchase tickets at OleMissFCA.com for that breakfast on Saturday morning. Again, coming to you from the Clark Ford studio.
We are Clark Ford's in Amory, Mississippi, 662-257-1900, 662-257-1900. Call the number, ask for Corey Clark. Tell Corey what new Ford you're looking for. You'll get a quote within 15 minutes in business hours. If you're thinking about buying a car, you think you might be in the market for a car or a truck, not quite sure, not sure that you want a Ford, not sure what you want, give Corey a call. Just let that be one of your calls. Let it be your first call. Get a quote. At the very least, it's a baseline for you moving forward, and it might just pique your interest the way it did mine and so many others, and you might end up in a great Clark Ford, getting great Clark Ford service after the sale. Delivery options, all of those things. Corey wants to be your car guy. He wants to be your truck guy. He'll prove it to you. 662-257-1900 is the number. Tell him that you heard about Clark Ford on the podcast. You'll save $500 off your already great bottom line.
So Ole Miss baseball back in action tonight against Texas A&M. The Aggies, that is supposed to be a nationally televised game if the rain will hold off and everything cooperates there. That is a 6 o'clock start tonight for Texas A&M and Ole Miss. I'm checking that to be sure, but I'm almost positive it's 6 o'clock. It is 6 o'clock tonight on SEC Network.
Weather's iffy.
It looks better than it did, but weather is a little iffy still. You've got tomorrow's game at 6:30 and then 2 o'clock on Saturday if doubleheaders do not happen. Ole Miss has been killed by weather from a TV standpoint by, frankly, their SEC series this season from having to move around times and doubleheaders and different things. That's, somebody pointed it out to me the other day. That was one of the other factors on declining attendance is just the doubleheaders and the crap that's been going on from a weather standpoint. It's been a lot like 2015 where they've been pretty messed up in that regard. But nonetheless, we will go to Chase Goodbread in a second from NFL.com. On tomorrow's show, I talked to Macy Samoski yesterday, the Ole Miss freshman golfer who helped her team win the SEC championship. She won all 3 rounds of match play in extra holes, including making that 50-foot putt that everybody's been seeing and has been all over social media. So I talked to her about that, what she was trying to do, what's kind of been her progression, as she was not even in the starting lineup for most of the season. And kind of now, as they look ahead to regionals, they are in the Norman, Oklahoma regional. They got put out yesterday afternoon. So they are one of 18 teams in Norman.
So many strip malls to choose from. So many strip malls to choose from in Norman.
The top 6 teams and then the top 3 individuals not on those 6 teams advance to the NCAA Nationals. And I believe that is at the Blessings course in Fayetteville, Arkansas this year. So I'm pretty sure that is right. So they are trying to go from Norman to Fayetteville when that starts next weekend. So anyway, that is that. Now we'll go to Chase Goodbread on the Patterson and Earhart hotline.
Chase, appreciate you spending some time with us here on draft day. I guess I'll start here because it's not the burning question, but a lot of people want different opinions. you had to guess, an educated guess on your part, which of the Ole Miss kids hears their name first tonight?
I think it's Metcalf. I'm not going to say that's a certainty, but I feel pretty good about that. He's athletically just so hard to overlook. I mean, he did incredibly well at the combine. I know his overall production at Ole Miss career-wise probably isn't quite what NFL teams look for, but he's just such a freak of an athlete. I think the measurables on him are gonna give him a really high floor for the draft, as they call it. And could A.J. Brown jump in front of him? I guess it's possible, but I would be surprised.
Give me a range where you think Metcalf could go. We'll start with him. I mean, where in the draft is the earliest you see him going? And I know these things change because drafts change, and there's a run on linebackers or a run on defensive linemen or whatnot that change things. But going into it, just sort of in a vacuum, if you had to guess, where's the earliest he could go? Where's probably the latest he could go?
Yeah, maybe 12 with the Packers might be a good spot to start looking for DK's window in the first round. The Packers don't have the weapons they used to around Aaron Rodgers, and so that's definitely, for me anyway, that's probably where the conversation probably begins with DK. And where does it end? You look at probably somewhere in the mid-20s, I'd say. The Raiders have got multiple picks in that range. They just traded Amari Cooper last year, so it certainly wouldn't be a surprise to see them pick up a wide receiver. So yeah, probably 12 to mid-20s where the Raiders are picking. I would think that's probably a pretty good window for DK.
And what about AJ? Because AJ was a more productive college receiver. He he's a specimen in his own right, but certainly he kind of gets dwarfed a little bit by some of what DK was able to do in the offseason. Yet he's probably the safer bet with less of a ceiling. I guess that's my evaluation of it. Is that kind of what you hear as well?
It is. I think the best AJ can probably hope for, from what I'm hearing, is late first round. So if things don't go well for DK and he doesn't go off the board toward the end of the first round, and they go great for AJ, they actually may end up getting drafted fairly close together. But you've seen, I think I've seen a mock or two where the Patriots might be looking at AJ Brown toward the end of the first round. Of course, they're picking number 32, which seems like they're picking 32 every year. But he's definitely more productive than DK, as you mentioned, and played that slot role at Ole Miss. He's big for a slot guy, not the traditional scat back type, and the slot role in the NFL. I'm not going to be surprised if he gets to the NFL and they try to bump him back outside wherever he goes, and it depends on where he goes. But he's a guy with some special skills too. Like you said, he's not to be forgotten. But with everything Metcalf did, particularly at the combine, he has, for whatever reason, kind of become the other guy at Ole Miss, even though production-wise he was better.
I'm going to get to some of those other guys, but kind of a big picture thing. And football as well as almost anyone I know, and the college game well, even though you work for NFL.com, the college game well. Did Ole Miss underachieve offensively with all of those weapons that they had, or was it scheme? When you look at them, was it a bad scheme? Did they just have bad luck? What happened that made this offense over the last couple of years not good enough to win games, or was it that it was just simply their defense was bad?
I tend to pin it on the defense with Ole Miss first, more than anything else. I mean, they've thrown the ball. I can't tell you the last time they didn't throw the ball well at Ole Miss. The two things that stand out for me in that regard is, one, the defenses too often just don't measure up. at Ole Miss, and obviously balance sometimes is an issue too. We've seen some Ole Miss teams that either can't run the ball, or maybe they can and they won't run the ball quite so much. And there are times when balance is called for. There are times when maybe you shouldn't go hurry up, fast break, and go a stretch in the game where you're not trying to rip off as many snaps as you can in the shortest period of time you can. Give the defense a little bit of a rest if it needs it, and you can pick up some first downs. Those are the things that I think about when Ole Miss is struggling.
All right, let's talk about Greg Little a little bit, Chase, because going into the season, the people talk about him a lot as a first-round pick. It certainly doesn't appear that that's going to happen. What are you hearing with Greg Little? Why has his stock fallen a little bit over the course of the season, and where might, kind of what range do you think he's going tonight or tomorrow?
Yeah, I think he and Dawson Knox are both pretty good bets they're definitely good bets for the second day of the draft, which of course is rounds 2 and 3. I won't be surprised if they're both gone in the second round. Little is a guy you heard about maybe as a first-round pick a year or so ago, and he has slipped some. I think there are some technique concerns there, maybe some concerns about how good he'll be at the point of attack on the run, because, as we said, that's not something he had to do a whole lot of at Ole Miss. He was pretty much in pass block mode in the Rebels offense nonstop. That's probably something that didn't help him a ton. But he's got the frame to play that left tackle spot, or even the right. In this day and age, the right tackle spot's almost as important, if not just as important, as it is on the left side. So, they think he can play tackle. That's helped maintain his stock for sure. You look at a guy like Jonah Williams from Alabama, his stock's probably slipped just a little bit because there are some teams that feel like he's a guard, even though he was a rock-solid offensive tackle throughout his career at Alabama. Well, Little's not hearing any of that. Little's got the tackle frame, and I think he's gone by the end of the second round. I think Dawson Knox probably is too.
Which of those guys do you like most as an NFL player?
I think I like Knox of the two. He's, and we're hitting a stretch. At this day and age in the NFL, the tight end who can get down the field is a weapon. And we just saw Gronk retire. He's the quintessential example. But you can go all over the league and find tight ends that just do a lot of damage in the passing game now, usually out of that slot role. And I think Knox has got the athleticism to be that kind of guy. I don't know if he's going to be effective on the shorter routes, because he's not necessarily the quickest guy in the world in a short area. But I do think if whoever picks up Dawson Knox gets him loose downfield and just let him hit the seams and throw it over the linebackers and not under them, I think he can do some damage. I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of pro he'll make.
Who's the top guy on, if you had a board, who's the top guy on your board? Mine's Quinnen Williams. I thought he was the best college player that I saw last season. I think he's an impactful NFL player. I think he has his floor is so high that his ceiling might be too, but the floor is so high that barring, catastrophic injury, and that applies to everybody, he's a sure thing in my book.
Quinnen Williams is the best player in the draft. I would agree with you. And it's surprising to sit here and say that when 12 months ago no one was saying a word about him. I mean, he didn't even really play much at all for Alabama in 2017, which would have been his redshirt freshman season. And he just absolutely blew up in 1 year as a redshirt sophomore, came out of nowhere. If you remember now, last August, if you looked at the top draft prospects heading into the college football season for this draft, the two guys at Alabama that you heard about most were Raekwon Davis and Mack Wilson. Well, Raekwon Davis had a down year such that he went back to school. Mack Wilson didn't have a great year either. he was thought of as maybe a first-round pick, and now he's looking at, maybe the third round or something like that. Whereas Quentin Williams and Josh Jacobs, nobody was talking about those two, and now they're first-round picks. It just kind of goes to show what one season can do for these guys.
Yeah, especially when it's as impactful as his was, where he was unblockable at the college level. I mean, no one could. I mean, when I say no one, he played really good teams, and people just couldn't handle him.
Yeah, I think the best quote I saw all year on him was from Jonah Williams. He said blocking him in practice is like trying to block a 300-pound bar of soap.
That's great. Yeah, and Williams is a terrific player too. There's so many edge players in this draft. So many guys who can, get to the quarterback off the edge. Are there one or two of those guys that stick out to you? I mean, in your opinion, kind of in that glut, who's going to be the first couple of guys called?
Josh Allen's going to get his name called really fast. He's the edge rusher from Kentucky, about 6'5", got a lot of length, a lot of quickness. He can bend and all those things. He's come a long way as a pass rusher for sure. So just in terms of pure edge guys, I would say that Allen's probably top of the list, but like you said, it's extremely deep. I think Nick Bosa's got a good chance to get drafted before Allen's. That could certainly easily happen. And he didn't, obviously last year he got hurt at Ohio State and kind of just, he left the team in the middle of the season to just go ahead and get ready for the draft. I guess it looked like he wasn't going to be able to come back by the end of the year, so off he went. So Nick Bosa, Josh Allen, those two are going to go top 5. But it's not just strong at the top. It's deep with edge rushers and also defensive tackles. Really, the whole defensive line, it's looking like a real bumper crop. Montez Sweat from Mississippi State, who I'm sure Ole Miss fans are familiar with. He's going to go fast for sure. He had a really strong Senior Bowl and kind of went crazy at the combine. So, and then you got Rashawn Gary at Michigan. You've got Brian Burns at Florida State. You've got Cleveland Farrell at Clemson. It's like a never-ending list of these edge rushers, and the defensive tackles are out there too. Christian Wilkins, Dexter Lawrence. That whole Clemson defensive line is going to get drafted pretty quick.
Ed Oliver, yeah.
Yep, there's another one.
Let me get your thoughts real quick on the quarterbacks. Obviously, it certainly sounds like Kyler Murray is going number 1. I know you've seen him some. You've gotten the chance to watch him. Drew Lock's in this draft. Dwayne Haskins is in this draft. What are your thoughts on the quarterbacks? Not only on where you think they'll go, but what kind of careers they'll have.
Murray going number 1 to the Cardinals has kind of been adopted as the narrative, especially with Cliff Kingsbury being the new coach there, and of course he ran the air raid at Texas Tech, and so people were excited about what he might be able to do with a guy like Kyler Murray. I don't see it. I don't. Yeah, they just drafted Josh Rosen, and of course the part of the speculation narrative has been that they're going to trade Rosen, clear the decks for Murray, but the draft starts tomorrow, so that trade's going to have to happen pretty quick if it's going to happen at all. And trading a guy you just picked in the first round as a quarterback is a tricky thing. It's not easy, and Rosen didn't play particularly well as a rookie. He also didn't have a lot of help in front of him as a rookie. So that makes his value tricky to gauge for sure. I think at the end of the day, the Cardinals are going to go in another direction, leave Kyler Murray to somebody else. The one team that I think you can be sure is going to take a quarterback has got to be the Giants. They picked up Saquon Barkley last year. Eli Manning's not going to be around there forever. So Dwayne Haskins from Ohio State, Drew Lock, who knows, maybe even if the Cardinals don't take Murray, and maybe Murray gets down to the Giants. But more than likely, I think the Giants will end up taking Haskins or Drew Lock or maybe Daniel Jones.
Last thing, then I'm going to let you go. I know you're really busy. I'd be remiss if I didn't just kind of get your early thoughts on the SEC West going into next season. I know you're focused on the draft right now and all that stuff, but when you just take a quick 30,000-foot view of the SEC West next year, what do you see?
Well, until Tua Tagovailoa is gone, you got to see Alabama at the top again, and probably beyond that as well. But with him coming back with the wide receivers he's got, probably the best wide receiving core in the country, all coming back, it's impossible to say anything but Alabama to win that division at this point. Beyond that, I think LSU is going to be better. It's going to be interesting to see what Auburn does at the quarterback position now that Jarrett Stidham's out of there. Ole Miss obviously has got turnover at the quarterback position themselves because Jordan Ta'amu is going to be. I might not have gotten the pronunciation right. I'll defer to you on pronunciation.
You were close enough.
He's going to get picked on Saturday. I'm pretty sure. Third day of the draft. So Ole Miss has got to find a new quarterback. Makes it when there's a lot of quarterback turnover, it tends to make it difficult to predict things. And I would say Texas A&M, along with LSU, would probably be the closest challengers to Alabama.
Well, Chase, really appreciate the time. Enjoy your time in Nashville. I know you'll be working hard. We look forward to seeing it.
All right, Neil, I appreciate it, man.
Thank you.
Thanks to Chase for joining us in what is obviously a very busy time for him. We're going to jump into Jeffrey in a second. First, tell you about Scripted Jewelry, scriptedjewelry.com. Go to the website, see for yourself, and get at it today because today is the last day to make sure you get your Mother's Day item in prior to that holiday coming up here soon. When you go to the website, you're going to see a special section just for Mother's Day items. It's going to tell you all about turnaround times, order deadlines, which is today, and much more. Recent work, new arrivals, what people have ordered recently to perfectly personalize those gifts for you. Put your script, put everything up with everything you need there at scriptedjewelry.com. Again, Mother's Day today is the deadline with Scripted Jewelry.
Hey, it's coming up on Sunday. It's the Blue Delta Jeans 5-year anniversary party at the Lyric on the Square in Oxford. Got some a new development for you. Make sure I get this right because I don't want to mess this up because this is big news for a lot of people. Let me see if I can find it. Yep, $100 off all Holland and Sherry pants, Blue Delta Jeans pants this week. $100 off.
Really?
Yep. Everything's $400 this week. So you can check out those Holland and Sherry's. I wore my lilac Holland and Sherry on Sunday.
You did?
I allowed myself to have a photo taken of myself.
You look very rigid and tense in your photo, no offense, but you did not appear to be very natural in said photo.
No, I mean, I've said this many times. One photo of me is one too many. I do not like, this goes way back to my childhood. I do not like photos of myself. I would prefer to never be photographed. That's not particularly fair to my children. And so I've tried to do better about that over the years. The pants looked really good.
The pants look good.
They really did. People, I got looks, and I was expecting those looks to be somewhat like, what are you wearing? And instead it was like, oh, those are good. Those are sharp. Wore it with the blue blazer, had a white button down, had a little white pocket square, light blue tie.
So,
I mean, I was afraid I was going to look like an Easter egg, and I didn't. Be honest with you. That same look. So if you're out there, odds are over-freaking whelming that you are better looking than me. You give that exact same look on a guy with hair and a normal-looking face, maybe 15 pounds less, you're turning heads. I'm keeping it real.
Are you going into the Instagram model business?
No, because I'm ugly. But what I'm trying to tell you is that particular look on a good-looking guy, it's a panty dropper. Keeping it real. You'll turn heads. You'll make things happen. I don't have the looks to make it happen. But if I can, you understand what I'm trying to say. Those pants are fantastic. And some of the colors and stuff that they have, the olive, I
have kind of the faded blue that I really like, kind of a bluish green.
Those are nice.
Yeah, those are the ones.
So if you've been thinking about
got
a pair
some
of those,
coming that haven't been announced yet.
I do too.
Yeah.
I've got a pair coming that I'm excited about.
Do we have the same pattern?
I don't know.
I'm a little worried about that for Sunday now. You're wearing pink Sunday though. Okay.
Yeah, I'm wearing the lilac.
All right,
on
sorry.
Sunday.
I think we don't need a uniform.
No, mine are not in yet.
Okay. All right.
I'm curious what you got.
All right.
They had to get my material from England, I think.
Did they really?
Yeah. No joke.
You mean complicated?
No. There was something I wanted to try, and so I'm trying it.
Okay.
Anyway, if you've been thinking about getting a pair of the Holland and Sherry, and you've been, frankly, a little intimidated by the price, it's $100 off this weekend, and you can do that while you enjoy complimentary Bloody Marys, complimentary Big Bad Breakfast biscuits, and that spring and summer line of denim and Holland and Sherry are going to be revealed on Sunday. They'll be there to fit you on Sunday. It's 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. It's a private event, but all of you guys are invited just because you suffer through this potato log podcast every day. This is your reward. What you need to do is go to Blue Delta Jeans on Instagram or Twitter, send them a direct message, tell them you're coming. That way they'll have enough stuff, biscuits and booze and whatnot, for you to enjoy. And you can send them an email, info@bluedeltajeans.com. That's info@bluedeltajeans.com. So Sunday at the Lyric on the Square in Oxford, 10 to 2, Blue Delta Jeans birthday party, anniversary party. What could be better than that?
Podcast brought to you also by G&M Pharmacy there on South Lamar in Oxford. Transfer your medications. I've been telling you about it for a while, so go ahead and do it now. Go ahead, type it in. Type in the email address. Type in the phone number, 662-236-2222, and switch over your medications to G&M. They're going to deliver to you. They delivered to me yesterday. Just showed up, rang the doorbell, walked off. Didn't have to see anybody, Neil. The medication was on the steps, and nobody even had to be talked to or anything.
That's awesome.
Didn't have to sign for it, just sitting there. Picked it up at the front door. My dogs let me know they were coming, of course. And we moved on with our day. It was quick, it's easy. They'll do it for you, too. I'm not special. They will do it for you if you call and switch that over and let them take care of all of it. And while you're in there, you might want to try that CBD oil we've been telling you about. Helps with anxiety, even appetite and hunger, depression, digestion, immune function, and much more. That's been scientifically proven. Over the years, it's becoming a very, very hot thing. We've talked about golfers and different people using it. And
Laura's been using it for her back.
Really?
Yeah.
There you go.
And she's had a difference.
Yeah. So 662-236-2222 with G&M.
The podcast is also brought to you by Oxford University Bank, OUB, locally owned and operated right here in Oxford. When you deposit money at OUB, that money and the vast majority of the bank's profits go right back into the Oxford community. OUB offers its customers the absolute best cash checking account. It's called Kasasa. And with Kasasa, OUB will pay customers 2.5% interest on their balances up to $50,000 and refund ATM fees nationwide. They also have a commercial checking account, now paying 1% interest as long as you keep $10,000 in the account. Comes with fully interactive online banking. So to learn more about Kasasa, to learn more about the commercial checking account, go to liveoxford.bankoxford.com or call 662-234-6668. OUB is FDIC insured. The podcast is also brought to you by Harry Alexander. Harry is an Oxford-based RE/MAX Legacy Realty agent. He is a big part of Savannah Square. It's a new 9-acre development, 0.7 of a mile from the Oxford downtown square. Savannah Square will initially consist of 32 standalone detached structures ranging in size from about 1,100 square feet to 2,400 square feet. The model home available for your inspection. It's located at 215 William Street. These homes have wonderful layouts, impeccable finishes. You can inspect them at the model. So if you're coming up this weekend for the A&M series, for double-decker, whatever the case may be, or both, get in touch with Harry if you're interested in looking at it. It's SavannahSquareOxford.com, and you can call or text Harry at 662-801-5621.
Appreciate Chase joining us again. We're going to jump right back on. We're going to talk to Jeffrey for a while. So settle in. We'll talk to Jeffrey Wright now on the Patterson-Earhart hotline. Jeffrey, good morning from the beautiful and crazy state of Florida for yourself. We're in the Clark Ford studio this morning. NFL draft tonight. Your Giants have, 3 of the first 37 picks, something like that. We don't know what's going on with some of the quarterbacks. You're going to share a stat with me about that in a second. But just overall, I know you used to be kind of, hey, hang out really into the draft. Are we still there, or is that kind of fallen off for you over the years as you've gotten a little older, gotten up over 30 now?
I still love the NFL draft. Now, with that being said, I realized yesterday, I think yesterday was a beautiful day. And here's why I think it was a beautiful day. Is there anything better than let's for the risk of sounding like Gary Parrish, is there anything better than stupid people trying to outwit one another and be the smartest guy in the room? Because I think the answer is no. And name me a time that is more high comedy than smokescreen season.
And here's the question with that is, does it really matter? Like, what's even really the purpose of it at this point?
I do, in fairness to them, I think the only thing that does matter is that I think if you're, obviously if you're number one, it doesn't matter, in my opinion. Like, the Cardinals have been that breathtaking version of stupid in that they made it abundantly clear that they wanted nothing to do with Josh Rosen. And then they decide, well, we're going to trade him. All right, we're taking your offers. And they couldn't believe that they didn't get good offers. It's stunning how it turns out when a market determines that you don't value an asset, they don't exactly overspend for it. So what I do think is valuable is I don't think if you're outside of number one, I don't think you need to have it out there who you want, because then people know behind you, okay, well, they want this guy, and then you can come and get jumped. Like, that was the classic Jerry Reese. Jerry Reese would have some friendly media, and he'd tell them who they wanted. Well, then it was out in the public, and he couldn't believe 4 or 5 years in a row he got jumped. And dadgummit, the guy we wanted, someone just jumped up and took him. You think? Jerry, did you think that you were the only human being on the planet that thought that guy was a good player? So I do think there is some use, but I don't even think you have to smoke screen that. I just think you have to not tell people who you like.
What'd you make of Gettleman basically calling Beckham the cancer that was the problem in the locker room?
Listen, you know my feelings on Beckham, but I think that was a little much. The reason why the Giants were a 5-win football team is not because Odell Beckham has, in my opinion, a well-documented bad attitude. But that's not the reason why they were losing games. They were losing games because that defensive line, low-key, really bad. The offensive line is well-documented.
Horrid.
And you look up and down the roster, and there were just plenty of holes. So to sit there and pin it all on Odell Beckham, I think is disingenuous. But he's also, hey man, he traded one of the most popular players in the league, a trade that even quote unquote smart football people didn't understand. So, he's got to, I think at this point, he's got to kind of continue to justify it and whatnot. And I think that's part of it. But yeah, I think that's disingenuous.
So for what's reasonable, do you expect or want the Giants to take a quarterback tonight in this draft?
Not if it's Daniel Jones.
Yeah, what is up here? There's nothing on the field from a production standpoint to justify this.
Yet everyone's falling in love with him right now.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
He's tall. And have y'all seen the other quarterbacks in this draft?
I was going to ask you because I've done a beer garden. I talked to Chase Goodbread. I've actually done NFL.
There's been a lot of draft this week.
I've done a lot of draft this week. Everybody has different thoughts on Haskins and different thoughts on Locke, and to some extent, different thoughts on the dude that's probably going number one, whose name is escaping me right now.
Kyler Murray.
Thank you. I wanted to call him Baker Mayfield.
Easy.
If you're the Giants, you've got these 3 picks. Eli's not getting any younger. Last year of his contract. Makes sense to take a quarterback, but you don't want to force taking a quarterback. Do you like – let's assume that Murray's off the board. Do you like either Haskins or Locke or Jones enough to spend a first-round pick on them?
Oh, boy. No, I would rather trade – this is going to upset people because they go, well, it's not the right value. I'd rather trade number 6 for Rosen. I like Rosen better than any other quarterback in this draft, including Kyler Murray. And, everyone will point to what a generationally bad year Rosen had, to which I would respond with, I'm willing to bet I watched more Arizona Cardinal games than you did because the Rams were good this year. The way the schedule worked out, they got flexed into a lot of better time slots. And so you wound up with only like 3 games on in that 325 window for us. And because of that, like the Cardinals were exclusively playing in that window because no one wanted to watch them play. I didn't see anything this year that changed my opinion that he was the second best quarterback in last year's draft. And I don't really like this draft to begin with. And anyone that would, try to point to anything about Rosen, I would simply say this. The Arizona Cardinals offensive line sustained blocks for 2.5 seconds on a league worst 38% of dropbacks last season. That is the league average is 50%.
I mean, spin zone here. He would feel really comfortable with Eric Flowers had he been around for that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I thought the Cardinals should have traded for Flowers, and just in terms of, not trying to avoid your question. If I had to pick, if you're telling me, like, if I change the question a little bit and you're saying, okay, I've got to take one of those guys with my first round pick, who would I take? I would begrudgingly probably take Locke. Haskins reminds me of a stronger armed Chad Pennington. And here's what I mean by that. Like, if you watch them play, it's a lot of safe throws. It's never a lot of, his deep throws are all like one-on-one against man coverage. I've only seen him throw from, in general, really clean pockets. And in the NFL, you don't typically get really clean pockets. I think his footwork's fixable, but I don't love it. And just in general, like, I've never seen him throw to anyone other than like outside receivers. It's outside receivers or backs out of the backfield, which are really safe throws. And so I've never seen anything that suggests to me that this guy can play the position at that level. I've also not seen anything that suggests he can't. I don't love, like, when you look at his accuracy numbers on throws down the field, his completion percentage drops significantly. But I mean, I know there's some people out there rolling their eyes, but that's significant to me. Like, and I'm not talking about like, okay, well, he clearly completes fewer throws that are 20 yards in the air than he does that are 5 in the air. I'm talking about,
not relative to average. I understand what you mean.
Right. Once he basically goes beyond throwing it, 10 yards in the air, his completion percentage, relatively speaking, against, college quarterbacks last year, it was shockingly bad. It was in the 70s and the 80s. On the flip side of it, you do have to kind of give him a little bit of a pass because he's 20, right? He's a redshirt sophomore.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't love him. And then Daniel Jones just reminds me of, he is tall. He sounds like a robot, and he's well coached. Man, if you watch Duke games last year, he doesn't do anything quick. Like, when he drops back, his It feels like his reads are always super slow. He kind of has that wind-up motion. I just think he's a classic example of the guy that looks the part. He's super polished in terms of like the interviews and whatnot. And I'm sure he's impressive in terms of, hey, let's be real. We saw David Cutcliffe make Ethan Flapp look competent as a quarterback. Let's not act like that David Cutcliffe can't get production out of the quarterback position. But this strikes me as like just he is the benefactor of being the guy that can wow you away from the football field and that you can talk yourself into, and he's also the beneficiary of a pretty weak quarterback draft.
Yeah, he's kind of the quarterback version of a combine warrior, if you will. So you read this to me a minute ago. I'll let you tell the audience in a second, but Chris Landry yesterday mentioned how mock drafts in general are kind of meaningless because we don't know about domino effects and teams trading up and different things like that. Maybe never more true than the quarterback position. So a lot of what kind of we're talking about, frankly, it's going to be meaningless at some point tonight.
Yeah, and this is why I understand why people do mock drafts. Like,
of course,
they're fun.
Yeah,
obviously clicks, but I was saying let's not even cynical. I mean, let's be realistic. The reason why mock drafts exist are for clicks, but I'm not trying to dismiss that. But in general, mock drafts are fun.
Projections are fun, period.
Yeah, I mean, before we even had clickbait journalism, let's be honest, all three of us always loved mock drafts. Like, they're just fun, like, in general. But especially now, because if you look at most mocks and if you look at most rankings of prospects, this is clearly a draft where defensive players are probably – there's probably better top-end defenders in this draft than there are offensive guys. And it's no matter what anyone says, you can't predict trades. And the truth is, quarterbacks are going to go in the top 10. And for them to go in the top 10, a lot of these teams that are in the top 10 don't need quarterbacks. And so a lot of them will want to trade down. And so, but when people are saying like, wait for this guy at 15 or whatnot, it just doesn't work like that. If you decide you need a quarterback, you're going to go trade up and go quarterback. And over the last 3 years, 10 of the 11 quarterbacks drafted in the first round have been drafted by a team that traded up to make the selection. The only quarterback of the last 3 years that was drafted in the slot that was allotted to them was Baker for the Browns. And since 2013, there's only been 4 quarterbacks taken by the team that owned the pick originally. As mentioned, Baker, Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota in 2015, and Bortles in 2014.
Now, those are all fairly good draft picks to some extent.
Yeah. What do we think of Mariota?
Competent. I'm not blown away, but I'm not upset by it either.
Good.
Yeah.
Good quarterback.
Yeah, this will be his 5th offensive coordinator this year.
I mean, he reminds me – I get that he's in a different system and whatnot, but he kind of reminds me a little of Andy Dalton. I don't think he's ever going to win a Super Bowl, but I think he's going to have you somewhat in the mix if he stays healthy most seasons. In some ways, that's the worst guy to have, though, because you just keep on and keep on and keep on and you never actually do anything.
Yeah, I'd rather have Fitzmagic than Andy Dalton because I know Fitzmagic isn't my long-term answer, and I'm never going to convince myself that he's the long-term answer. He is my stopgap. You know what I mean?
Okay. But, you're not taking Fitzmagic with whatever pick they took Mariota is. What, 2?
2.
Yeah.
I'm
he's better than Jameis.
Yeah, probably. The problem with Fitzmagic is Fitzmagic is the ultimate trap quarterback. And what I mean by that is you look at him and you expect nothing out of him, but he's a great downfield thrower. Like, he really is. Not really a great short thrower or really accurate thrower particularly, but he's a great downfield thrower. And so when you've been preparing all week and going, hey, this guy can't really beat us with his arm, it's true if you keep everything in front of you. But if you give him a little bit of a chance to beat you deep, he's a very good deep ball guy. And so if you're not expecting anything from him, he can sneak up on you. But if you just start doing kind of like what the Steelers did on that Monday night game, I think it was week 3, and you just sit there and go, all right, guys, like, nothing deep, make him beat us underneath, he's going to throw the ball to you more than he's going to throw it to his other team. And, he's going to have 4 or 5 picks. He still might hit a few big plays, but he's going to make enough bad plays that are going to cost his team. So in general, when you're thinking of Mariota, I don't know, man. Like, I want to be fair to him because he had nerve damage. He's been banged up. But at a certain point, when you've been banged up that much, that's kind of, you know what I mean? If you're injury prone, you're injury prone. And like, I can't just keep doing the Matthew Stafford if he stays healthy, the Marcus Mariota if he stays healthy. Like, at a certain point, like, if you don't stay healthy, that's kind of what you are. Yeah,
no, I completely agree with that. Given where they're relatively going to be drafted, not necessarily the Giants or for need, but just NFL in general, which Ole Miss player would you want at that spot?
The answer has to be DeMarcus Lodge, right?
Yeah, that's what I thought too. I mean, if you get him anywhere in the late rounds, because frankly, it wouldn't shock me if he ends up being as good or better than the other two eventually.
So, Jason Lockenfora was on our show on Tuesday, I think.
Okay.
And he wasn't even hot taking. And Jason Lockenfora, I think, is pretty well sourced in the NFL. He thinks that it's more likely than not that DK goes out of the first round. And before those that are saying he's just out to get Ole Miss, he had A.J. Brown being the most likely the first receiver taken. So
the NFL guys are concerned with
that he can't change direction.
Yes, they did not like his shuttle drill, his 3-cone drill.
He was the 3rd worst receiver in one of those drills and the 4th worst in the other. I don't remember which was which.
And even though his injuries are different, the reason people say, well, he hasn't been productive, he's the one guy that I don't know that you can pin the productivity thing on Longo. He wasn't productive as others because he got hurt.
Took a break in our talk with Jeffrey to tell you about Community Mortgage, Oxford, Memphis, Soto County, and Chattanooga. Underwriting processing is done in Memphis. They're getting local underwriting. Understands your market. They're a leader in condo financing and the float down option, so you can lock in the current rate. But if rates go down before you close, you just get that lower rate. 662-234-2704 or JLOWE at communitymtg.com.
Podcast also sponsored by Grenada Nissan. If you're in the market for a Nissan vehicle, Grenada Nissan's the place to go. They've got a complete selection of new and previously owned Nissan vehicles. If they don't have what you're looking for on the lot, they'll order it, have it to you quickly. They'll take great care of you, great service after the sale, great lease deals, everything you could possibly want in a car dealer. If you're looking for a Nissan, you need to go to Grenada Nissan. It's GrenadaNissanUSA.com. Podcast also brought to you by John Edwards of Regency Travel Incorporated in Memphis. If you're starting to panic a little bit about your summer vacation, trying to get that lined up, whether it's to go to Europe or whether it's to go to Napa or to Florida, the Caribbean on a cruise, whatever the case may be, you kind of owe it to yourself to, at the very least, give John Edwards a call. He's part of Virtuoso. It's a worldwide network of travel partners that allows him to supply his clients with added values and unique benefits that are simply not available to other travelers. Seriously, you owe it to yourself. Give him a call. Give him some parameters. Give him a budget. And just let him see if he can come up with some options that you could not make your trip a special one that creates a lifetime of unique memories. And you don't have to live in or near Memphis to take advantage of his services. 901-494-3387 or send him an email, jedwards@regencytravel.net. First-time clients can save $50 off their first booked trip just by telling John you heard about Regency Travel on the podcast. And it's a podcast that is brought to you by the Westin Jackson. My mailbag is up on rebelgrove.com. It is sponsored by the Westin Jackson. If you're staying in Jackson on business, on pleasure, that's the place to stay. Maybe you're going just for a weekend to visit friends, to play golf, whatever the case may be. You owe it to yourself to stay at the Westin Jackson. You can enjoy Soul Spa. It's the ultimate luxury spa experience in downtown Jackson. And you can dine at Estelle Wine Bar and Bistro, sip on a creative craft cocktail, enjoy their curated wine list, and enjoy Chef Caden's many offerings.
Now back to Jeffrey Wright.
Yeah,
The Longo problem with Metcalf is he had no ability to actually show any side-to-side or route tree because he just ran deep every play.
Right.
So there's no film on anything else.
Right.
Yeah, if I'm being paid to be a draft advisor and give me the pros and cons of DK Metcalf, I think the pros are as follows, and y'all feel free to jump in at any point and tell me if you think that I'm wrong or being harsh, or I'm wrong and being too positive. I think he uses his body extremely well. I think he will be a very, very good red zone target. I think he boxes out really well. And in the red zone, so often when you get a lot of man coverage, because particularly in the short red zone, everyone's trying to stop the run first, and they're playing man to man, just saying, okay, well, if you don't throw it quick, you're not going to be able to throw it at all. So I think he'll be very productive in that. I think he is a good deep ball receiver, and I don't mean he just runs and goes, he just runs past people. Like Anthony Miller at 5'9" or whatever is actually a very good deep ball receiver, because Anthony Miller tracks the football really well, and he can adjust, and he makes quarterbacks look better because of how well he adjusts the football. And if he can turn DBs around and he tracks the football, goes up, gets it. I do think DK is pretty good at tracking deep balls and coming down with deep balls. I have not seen enough of him on in-breaking routes that suggest to me that he's going to be able to get separation like you have to at that level. I've also not seen enough that suggests that he can't. We just don't know. I think he has good hands, doesn't have great hands. And I think he is fast enough. Like with Treadwell, the whole time, we would talk about it. Well, he can't get open with speed, so he's got to get open with technique and routes. And I never believed that after the injury, Laquan was going to be able to do that. And I think history has shown favorably that was the right supposition. And then on top of that, man, like, played 3 college seasons and he was hurt in 2 of them. And in games when receivers got physical with him, he disappeared. And overall, if you told me, do you want to take a first-round pick with him? No, but if I'm sitting there in the second round in the 40s, yeah, I got to get him. I don't think he's a number 1. I'll say that, and I'll be happy to eat my words on that.
What about Greg Little?
He feels like there's too much negativity around him.
Yeah, I got a hot take coming on this. Go ahead.
Okay, so I think I do actually – the ironic part of it all, the person that I think that's been hurt most by Longo is not one of these receivers. I don't actually even think it's Dawson Knox. I think it's Greg Little, because so much of what hurt Greg Little is their stupid offense in which everything's a run-pass option. And so, therefore, he was never in pass protection sets. So it looked like he got beat more than he did. He was getting beat primarily because he was getting beat by edge rushers that were just going to the quarterback. And because the offense was so stupid there was like if he were in a pass protection set, dropping, he could have, I think he would have done much better against particularly strong defensive ends that quote unquote whipped his ass this year. And so I think Greg got hurt more by the stupid offense than anyone else.
Yes, I actually have two hot takes. Hot take number one's a short one.
Hang on.
Put your mitts on.
Okay.
Right. This one's just a.
You got two. Hold on. I got to put on some aloe vera first. Hang on.
This one's just a warm take. If you're a hitter and you know what's coming, if you're a hitter in baseball and you know what pitch is coming, do you have a better chance of hitting that pitch than if you don't know what pitch is coming?
That would be affirmative, yes.
100%.
Defensive linemen knew what was coming. So Greg was the guy throwing pitches, and there was hey, look at Christian Yelich's home road splits. Just check those out.
Whoa. I was not expecting a Milwaukee Brewers or cheating take to come inside this take. Oh, you have my full attention. Go ahead.
When you know what's coming, you're really good. When you don't know what's coming, you're not as good.
Hey, okay. Neil, have you ever heard of the biblical passage or message? You know, most would think, the golden rule is do unto others as you do unto yourself. No. The golden rule is if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
Well, that's true. I don't have a massive issue with the Brewers, but I'm telling you that someone is giving Yelich signs in Miller Park. There's no question about it. He's a completely different hitter on the road. Anyway,
he's very comfortable with the backdrop.
Yeah, he sure as hell is.
I will say this though. Hang on. We'll get back to our Greg Little take. In fairness, at this time of year in Milwaukee, the roof's closed a lot. And when the roof's closed in Milwaukee, it's a crackerjack box.
It is, but dude, the splits are too disparate. He's cheating, and I have no problem with that. Here's my little take.
It's not cheating in baseball. It's sportsmanship.
Sportsmanship. Well, he's doing a lot of sportsmanship. Here's my little take. I love football, love it. I watch a lot of football, not as much as you do, but I watch a lot of football. I even adopted an NFL team, made the NFL fun, the whole deal. But got your heart broken immediately. I did, and there is a tendency, you would both agree, for football people to get meatheady.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Greg Little is being impacted by the meatheads right now. Because he's a guy that he doesn't wake up and eat, sleep, and breathe football. There's more to his life. He's a little more complicated. He has more interest. He's kind of soft-spoken. He's not meathead, pound your head against the wall kind of guy. I think Greg Little, of all the guys in this draft, has the brightest NFL future, assuming everybody stays healthy.
At what position?
Oh, I think he can play left tackle.
Okay.
I think I agree. If you told me the Giants took him at 17, I'm cool with that.
Oh, I think the Giants.
I think the Giants can get him at 30, whatever.
I was getting ready to say, I think he might fall to 36, and if I'm the Giants, I'm jumping at it.
Do you think in a draft where the consensus is amongst people that know what they're looking at, that this is an interior draft, do you really think he falls to the second round?
Well, here's the thing.
Everyone needs offensive linemen.
Yeah, everyone, and it's kind of funny that you say that because everyone needs offensive linemen, and this is a draft that is absolutely loaded with defensive linemen, so it stands to reason that at some point you better draft somebody that can block some of these cats. But I don't know. I don't know how the runs work, I mean, what happens? Does everyone panic when all of these defensive linemen start going off the board, boom, 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 and everybody starts taking those guys, and that's where wide receivers fall and offensive linemen fall. I don't know. You listen to guys like Chris Landry, and look, Chris knows everyone. So when he says this, I know for an absolute fact that this is what he's hearing on Greg Little. I have zero doubt in his credibility. None. NFL guys, I always kind of question his desire. That's the meathead coming out, and I think some team's going to benefit from that.
I can completely agree, because also on top of that, it is, by the way, tangentially related. Did Greg sign with an agent?
I mean, I would have assumed, but I don't know.
I think so, but I know where you're going with that. I don't think he signed I don't think he signed with one of the super agents. I think it's a little more of a different kind of organization.
The common trend now that essentially the NFL draft with the picks, they're slotted, hey, if you're taking here, you're getting this amount of money. Now that everything is essentially slotted, there's been a push to not sign with agents, because you're going to make what you're going to make. There's no need to sign with an agent early because they'll take a cut and whatnot. And I think Edholm made a really good point. I think NFL agents, I think you can make a case they're very much like real estate agents, in that you're not exactly signing with them to maximize the amount of money that you're going to make on your first deal, but you risk losing a lot of money. And listen, the NFL is a business just like every other business is. And, when, there's a reason why agents exist, and there's a reason why they've existed for a long time, and their business isn't exactly struggling, and it's that they're necessary. And so agents can keep you from, if you got the right agent, it can keep you from falling. And I've just wondered if Greg had the wrong agent, because a lot of this narrative would be nipped in the bud if you have a good agent, and an agent that's trusted by NFL organizations. When the momentum starts going against you, that, hey man, here's what we don't like about Greg, and instead of that becoming the narrative that starts gaining steam, your agent's able to go, hey, listen, here's what happened. Here's their offense. And you start talking to them just like we were. He was put in bad positions every single time, but let's go look at, instead of, and they would distract him from the bench press numbers, come up with a reason for why his bench press wasn't good.
And he did get hurt in the bench press, which helped.
Correct. And so, and they would, you start reshaping the narrative. And so the momentum doesn't go against you, because it's like in any business. Once you get an idea in your head and you start seeing evidence that supports that claim, you're gonna start buying that. And I think there's a good chance that's what's hurting Greg.
He's the anti-Daniel Jones.
Correct.
Basically. Yeah, I saw that. No.
Yeah, I think that's a fair way to say it.
Yeah, I get it. All right. Let's see. Anything else draft-wise?
No.
You good?
I'm good.
Just curious. I've asked everybody else this week. We've talked about it ad nauseum. You've watched probably more than people realize. Crystal ball. What's Ole Miss's conference record at the end of this baseball season?
Ooh, boy. All right. So there's 12 left.
There are 12 left. It's A&M at home, at LSU, Mississippi State at home, at Tennessee.
So they're right now they're sitting at 10-8, and with 12 left, I mean, if you're playing the odds, it feels like 15-15, correct?
I think that's fair. I mean, because here's the deal. Put them in order of series most likely to win.
Tennessee.
Yeah, although their pitching does give me some pause, and they're playing better than people probably realize at the moment.
No, I agree with you, but in terms of the teams that you don't like, if you're here's how I'll rank it in terms of if I've got to rank it based on the teams that I want to play. If I were getting to pick my series, I would pick Tennessee first, wouldn't you?
Yeah, and here's my little hot take, because I don't really worry about history that much. LSU's second.
I kind of agree. You and I have talked about this off the show. LSU, when people want to talk about the Ole Miss team being weird and not making a lot of sense, LSU's right there with them. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, they've held it together better, frankly, just because they don't freak out and press as much. But from a roster management standpoint, from a just overall pitching staff, they're really kind of in trouble when you look at them in a vacuum.
Yeah, and they've, when people want to hammer Ole Miss for,
they're 11-7 in the league, so you got to keep it within reason. But I get what you mean.
Yeah, you look at some of their midweek games where they have some head-scratching losses.
They have 3.
Losses. Yeah, they have losses where you're like, how the heck did that happen? I think I would go Tennessee. I think I'd go A&M at home, then LSU, and then State.
Okay. So you think State's the hardest series they have left?
Yeah, just because in general that – I'm not saying that Ole Miss doesn't care about the series. They do, but State has a tendency when they care about a series to rise to the occasion, whereas Ole Miss has the tendency to get super tight in big series. I think part of the reason why they had the series against Florida that they did was it felt like coming off that Missouri series that Ole Miss kind of went in there with nothing to lose. You know what I mean?
Well, Arkansas was in the middle, but yeah.
Yeah, Arkansas, yeah. And, that's the ironic part of it all. It's like, oh, yeah, hey, maybe look at the idea when this team plays loose that they seem to play better. Again, just spitballing here. I'm just an idiot with a microphone.
This weekend is what is interesting to me because A&M, Ole Miss has lost, 3, whatever it is. A&M is not a good matchup for Ole Miss. They've got Doxicus going tonight, a really a power left-hander, a guy that can spin multiple pitches in there. They've got Lacey going tomorrow, another left-hander. They've got left-handers all through the bullpen. They're a little better offensively than maybe they get credit for at times. This is the interesting part for me of this entire schedule, even though I kind of had Auburn as the mark where we start to judge them a little bit. That's been kind of thrown out by the way they went about the first 6 weeks of the SEC schedule. A&M is not a good matchup. They're 11-6-1 in the league, and if that thing goes a little funny, you do have all the baggage of Baton Rouge coming up next week. And for a team that has a tendency to get tight and not play loose at times, that's kind of a big deal because all of a sudden you're going into a state series, like you said, a huge series, and then if you're not able to play loose, you get run out of there, and suddenly this thing's in big trouble.
Okay. Hang with me here.
And now that could always reverse, but I'm just saying there is a worst-case scenario that's not crazy here.
Hang with me here and see if you agree with this.
Okay.
I think as long as the left-hander is a power arm, I don't think it's a bad matchup for Ole Miss, and for one main reason. The biggest main reason is that the left-handers that give Ole Miss trouble are the left-handers that kind of pitch backwards.
Correct, yes.
Because Ole Miss has always, under Mike, they've always been an aggressive offensive team.
And a very pull-heavy team.
Yes. And so when you cliche or not, but if you're a right-handed hitter and you're going up against a left-handed fastball's typically tail arm side. When you try to pull it, you're either going to swing and miss, you're going to hit cap shots, or, even if you get out in front, you're typically going to hook it foul. And so, think right center, not to sound like a meathead baseball coach, but there's a reason why you do that. It's because ball's tailing away from you. Try to go the other way with it so that you're not pulling off of the baseball. But the biggest reason why I think as long as it's a power arm from the left-hand side that it benefits Ole Miss is that it's better for Thomas Dillard, because that means Dillard's hitting from the right side, which he is, in my opinion, and I think statistics would back it up. He's clearly a better right-handed hitter than he is a left-handed hitter. And when you have the power arms, it allows them to be they're being aggressive and going after fastballs when you've got a power left-handed one. If a fastball's coming in with more velo and you're trying to pull it, you can usually keep it in between the lines better.
Take one last break with Jeffrey and tell you about MasterCut's Lawn and Landscape. Call them, get the free quote, whether it's basic maintenance to take care of your yard throughout 2019. The temperatures are up. Your yard's going to need cutting, so let them handle it. They'll handle all basic maintenance. 662-607-7773. Also online, you can see all the different services at GoMasterCuts.com. And they offer much more than you realize with custom playgrounds, retaining walls, pool decks, outdoor living spaces, paper patios, forestry mulching, and more. Again, 662-607-7773.
Podcast also brought to you by Pinnacle Trust. Pinnacle Trust, based in Madison, Mississippi, represents clients in more than 20 states, has advisors in 3. What Pinnacle Trust does is they sit down and they talk to you. They listen to you. They find out what your retirement goals are, what your expenses are, what your level of wealth is, what are your goals for retirement, what do you want to do in retirement, when do you want to retire. What's the lifestyle that you're hoping to lead? And then what they do is they put together a comprehensive, detailed financial and retirement plan. The cookie-cutter financial planners do not do that. They sort of stick you in a preordained box that you kind of fit in at that moment. It's not what Pinnacle Trust does. To learn more, go to PINNTrust.com, PINN Trust.com. Mention you heard about Pinnacle Trust on the podcast. You'll get 10% off your first year's fee. Warm weather is it's pretty much here, and with it comes the inevitable debate of sock or no sock with your loafers. I've been wearing mine. They're a difference maker, honestly. If you wear shorts sometimes or even pants, you're wearing your Highland Cherries, and you don't want to wear a sock, but you can't stand the way that your feet feel all day on a warm day with loafers. I'm one of those people. Dead Soxy fixes your problem. Their no-shows are terrific. You really need to experience the difference a quality sock makes. So go to deadsoxy.com, enter the code RebelGrove at checkout to receive 30% off all orders, including sale items and including the no-shows. And the no-shows are the same quality you already love and enjoy with their traditional dress sock, and they come with their no-slip guarantee. Again, deadsoxy.com. Check out the no-show collection, and remember to enter promo code RebelGrove at checkout for 30% off all orders.
Now back to Jeffrey Wright. Yeah, and see, I think it's almost more power arm versus finesse arm, no matter what side Dillard's from. I think that some of his stats are skewed simply because he sees so many more thumbers from one side than the other. And he's not handled those overly well. But, I mean, Ole Miss right now, going into the weekend, they're 4-9 this season against left-handed starting pitching. They're 23-6 against right-handed starting pitching this season. The batting average is about 60 points different, something like that. I don't have it in front of me, but it's something along those lines. But, no, you're right, because power arms, they still can attack those early count fastballs. And that's what they want to do. They're trying to get in, get out with something hit hard, and they just do not get that against thumbers whatsoever. They get behind in counts, or they get frustrated, and it sort of is a self-fulfilling deal where it spirals on them. Doxicus is not the worst thing, but as they get into the bullpen, I do wonder a little bit how they handled this weekend. And then for Ole Miss, they've got to kind of figure out their own bit of pitching here because they're TBA again on Sunday. I assume they're probably going back to Gunnar Hoagland, but I don't know that for sure. And frankly, it's not even necessarily, it's Gunnar having a hard time the second time through the lineup, having a hard time in the stretch, however you want to categorize some of these stats. And then it's also the fact that, frankly, Mike doesn't trust him.
Yeah, I've always thought one of the criticisms that doesn't get enough, in my opinion, enough merit or maybe enough play, if we're discussing negatives about Bianco, it's everyone's always going to point to teams playing tight and big series, never winning a regional on the road, all of which are valid. But I think one of his bigger issues is he coaches teams, and he coaches particularly players. Like once it's in his head that this guy is this, it takes an overwhelming amount of evidence to change that. And I think you can also attribute to particularly maybe why some teams play tight man, if you're always worried about if I make a mistake and you're not one of his guys, like if you are one of his guys, it's awesome because you can make all the mistakes in the world. It doesn't matter. Like you're just going to be there. And that's why I think there's frustration of why does this guy keep hitting here? Why does this guy keep hitting here? And by the flip side though, if you're not one of his guys, like I just got to imagine every single time you step on the diamond, like you are just playing so tight. And I think maybe that's why perhaps some guys play tight and there's more guys that fall into the latter category than the former category. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's just the former ones stick out because, like you said, they don't get out of the lineup. It is what it is. I mean, we've kind of talked about that all week. I'm kind of tired of picking on the same player over and over and over again.
I've got two things I want to talk to you all about.
Okay, how about it?
All right, so this is a topic I think we can all weigh in on.
Okay.
As sports fans, and not really like this is not a particular point of specialization. Okay, the NHL playoffs. So in the NHL playoffs, all 4 division winners are already out. And contrast that with the NBA playoffs, which typically is the most predictable of all playoffs. Like if you look at the way that the odds come out in, July, August, September, there's not much deviation. The only deviation we really see is when a team gets hit with injuries, if they were expected to be good, they typically fall off. Or maybe you get a team like the Clippers that on paper doesn't make sense, but, Doc, I think, has done one of his best coaching jobs. And then
the best coaching job he's ever done.
Yeah, I agree. And it's a team that you can't explain it, but they do play well together. Like there's not overwhelming amounts of talent. But what do y'all think in terms of a sports fan? Do you like the playoffs, for instance, like the NBA, where the better team is typically rewarded? Because in a 7-game series, usually in basketball particularly, where your best guys are on the are in competition the most, typically the better team wins, versus a 7-game series in hockey, a 7-game series in baseball, where there's other factors. Like in hockey, if you get a hot goaltender, it completely changes everything. And in baseball, if you've got 2 or 3 arms that, if you get a guy going 2003 Josh Beckett and he's getting the ball 3 times in a series.
Hey, safe space.
Yeah. Yeah, but I was mainly thinking more of like Beckett against the Yankees.
Yeah, but
where the Yankees
had
that was nothing better than watching a professional baseball team like having the head drop going into the batter's box.
I don't remember that series.
Versus Chris Carpenter. Chris Carpenter was a better playoff pitcher, I think, than regular season pitcher. Schilling. Take it. What would you rather see? Would you rather see a playoff system that rewards the better team, or would you rather see a playoff system where, hey, it's cliche, but just get in the tournament and you got a chance?
I mean, this is going to sound like a cop-out answer, but I'll explain it. I actually love both. Here's what I love about the NBA. I mean, I really do. This is to me the cool story in the NBA right now is Portland. A year ago, Portland got swept out of the playoffs by the Pelicans.
Yeah.
And there was a call to fire Terry Stotts. Their fans were like, "Hey, we got to break up these 2 guards. They're identical. We ought to trade C.J. McCollum, see what we can get." Blah blah blah. And Portland said, "Nope, we're going to learn from this." And they did. And they just knocked the Thunder out. They'll have a real shot against Nuggets or Spurs in the next round. I mean, there's a real chance Portland is in the Western Conference Finals with a guard who right now is playing, and I know this sounds crazy, If I offered you Steph Curry or Dame Lillard right now, who are you taking? Right now, this moment.
I mean, I know what you're saying.
I'm taking Dame,
Lillard,
and it ain't close.
I know what you're saying, but I do think they're for you, and I'm not saying you're dismissive, but I think there's recency bias because you watched those games. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I watched Portland a lot this year, and then when
and I know Steph's has struggled. I know he has struggled shooting most of the series.
When Jerkic went down, and they inserted Enes Kanter into their lineup, I thought they're done. And Damian Lillard is the reason that they're not even close to done. And Terry Stotts is one hell of a coach. Really, honest to God, we're jumping around. What Terry Stotts did with Enes Kanter in less than a month is the biggest indictment on Billy Donovan as an NBA coach I've ever seen. Because Billy Donovan said to Maurice Cheeks on the bench during a Thunder Rocket series, can't play Kanter. Not only did Terry Stotts play Kanter, he played Kanter a lot. And Enes Kanter is a big reason that the Portland Trailblazers won that series. Anyway, to answer your question, I like that part of the NBA. Like Utah faces that decision now, right? They just got beat by Houston, and Donovan Mitchell's a great young player, but they're not getting any younger. Rudy Gobert's. There are questions whether guys like Gobert really have a real place in today's NBA. Joe Ingles isn't getting any younger. You have all those guys. What does Utah do? What did the Thunder do? I mean, is there even a way to break it up? Would anybody trade for Russell Westbrook if the Thunder decided to trade? To me, that's the fascinating thing with the NBA. And in this next round, even though Golden State's the one, and I assume they'll survive the Clippers, they're in real jeopardy against Houston the way that the Rockets are playing right now. So I think the NBA playoffs are fascinating. To further
expand on your point, Dave Schilling made this point to me last year, and he's 100% right. This is a team that is trying to make the finals 5 straight years and is trying to win their 4th in 5 years. There's a reason why when you go look through, even in the NBA where it's predictable, man, it's really hard. And they're older.
And there's a mental strain. There's a mental strain with that team that you can see. It's now no longer just something people talk about. You can watch it unfold. Late in games, last night's a great example, Jeffrey. Late in the game last night, you knew where the Clippers were going. Pick and roll, Lou Williams, that's where we're going. You know what's coming. We're giving it to him. We're going to set a pick and roll. He's going to do it. The Warriors, they get late in games, and it's, okay, well, who deserves the ball here? Is it KD? Is it Curry? Is it Clay? Draymond sulky. They're weird.
Yeah, I mean, I still think, to answer your original question, listen, when Damian Lillard told Russell Westbrook, where are you going, every time he'd switch off of him, come take this ass beating.
Yeah.
I mean, to sit there and say that didn't warm my heart, and I didn't think I might have to consider my thoughts on Damian Lillard again.
But it came, that's my point. It came 1 year after he disappeared in a playoff series.
But at the end of the day, like, we have such a wide sample size that says Curry has moments where he struggles because he's so much of his game is predicated on how well he's shooting. But there also is plenty of evidence to suggest he could come out the next series and be unstoppable.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt.
If you're asking me, I'm getting ready to go play the Western Conference semifinals. I'm taking on the Rockets. Do I want to take Damian Lillard? Do I want to take Steph Curry? I'd be fully willing to accept I made the wrong decision, but I know 10 times out of 10, I'm taking Steph Curry.
I kind of like the NBA thing where the best team wins, but I kind of like even the home team having such an advantage because it just that ramps up the pressure. There's the one steal, and all of a sudden a series flips on you. To me, that's more, in a way, that's more dramatic. And hey, can the little engine that could just win 4 times in 7 games? when there's such an emphasis on winning certain games.
I agree, because if the little engine that could steals one game, then it puts the pressure back on the better team.
Something at 65-35 suddenly flips to 40-60.
And then on top of that, what I do think is the test of great teams is how do they play when the pressure is on them?
Mm-hmm.
And it is in the NBA. That is why I think that's why you see in the end why the better team wins, because typically the better team is the team that handles that scenario the best, because they don't panic. And I think you're right. And in general, my general philosophy is I like the better team to be rewarded. It's the same reason why, obviously I'm not going to advocate that let's go back to the BCS, but one thing that I did like about the BCS was, in general, when you got to the last game of the season, the team that was the national champion was the team that was the best team on the first week and the 14th week. And I think in the end, I'm okay with the NBA in that I do think the team that was the best team all year typically gets rewarded. We always see exceptions. A couple of those Detroit teams, I don't think you could make the argument they were the best team year in, year out. But in general, I like when excellence gets rewarded. I think the answer is really the best setup is probably the NFL, because it's the perfect blend of it's just one game, so you can't have the randomness factor, but there's a reason why most years when we get to the Super Bowl, it's either the 1 or 2 seed in each conference.
Yeah, it's very rarely the Giants made the wild card run that time, but
and you can make the argument for why it happened. The Giants got in that wild card game and they finally got healthy.
Right.
They finally got healthy at the end of the year. The Packers had Aaron Rodgers and he played, some of the best stretch of football in his entire life. You understand why it occurred. It's not like, oh, well, they just won it. It's really, you can win a fluky game, but it's really tough to win 4 fluky games.
And even in baseball, even though there is some more variance because of the one-game wild card and because of one pitcher can carry a team through a series, still typically the best teams get to the World Series.
Yes. I mean, for every year where when the Cardinals, what they make it at 80, is it 84
They
wins?
won 84 or 85 games.
I mean, the Marlins won it twice as a wild card. That's your outlier.
Yeah, but at the same time, though, if you look at both of those Marlins teams, when they had a chance, like at the deadline, they went and got players. Like they kind of sold out. They sold out to win, and then afterwards they sold out afterwards.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So, but you can kind of understand how it happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah, go back and look at those lineups, and those were not little engine that could teams. Those were really good teams.
What's your other topic before your donut run here in a minute, Jeffrey?
Okay, so I think, for all of the arguments about the incompetence of the Los Angeles Lakers franchise, can we just take a moment and appreciate when they actually get something right? When Magic Johnson is incompetent, but you can't really fire Magic Johnson, accidentally CCing him on emails that discuss how poorly of a job he's doing, you gotta kind of tip your cap to them.
It was beautiful work. They had to figure out a way to get him to quit.
Right, because you can't fire Magic Johnson.
No.
You couldn't fire him at this point. Eventually, if enough time goes on, that's the best way to do it, right?
What I still love is the people who said a year ago, well, Magic being in Los Angeles that'll calm LeBron down and he'll defer to Magic. I'm like, oh my God, you clearly don't understand LeBron James. He's not deferring to anyone ever.
It was the only time. It's the only time in Memphis where I felt like I was sent back in time to where I was on your guys' show every single day and you just read a message board. When I said when the Lakers signed LeBron, and I just said, get up, good luck. Here's what you're signing up for. You're signing up for LeBron head coach, LeBron GM, and LeBron the player. Best of luck to you. And everyone said, that's so insulting to Magic Johnson. How could you say this about truly one of the legends of the game and whatnot? And I just rolled my eyes like, no, like there's more evidence that suggests, like, at the end of the day, Magic did what he could to sign LeBron James. By definition, you are conceding some leverage.
Yeah, a lot of it. All right, I got one for both of y'all.
All right.
It's baseball, and it's about the Cubs, but it's not really about the Cubs. It's about a lot of stuff in the headlines and stuff. Addison Russell suspended 40 games for domestic abuse. His ex-wife talked about it publicly. She was part of the penalty process, the whole deal. His 40 games are going to be up in about a week. He's eligible, I think, May the 3rd or May the 4th to play in the major leagues again. Twofold question. His replacement at shortstop, Javi Baez, is one of the top probably 10 most recognizable players in the game. Kids like him, et cetera, et cetera. He's been playing very good shortstop. He's hitting at a high level, all that stuff. If you're the Cubs,
tags.
If you're the Cubs, what the hell do you do with Addison Russell in a week?
Hold on real quick. What kind of player is he going to be?
Well, I mean, traditionally he's been a very solid defensive major league shortstop who hits about 250 with some sporadic power.
Then I play him somewhere in my middle infield. I either move Baez back or I play him at short.
Do you get worse if you move Baez back to second?
Yeah.
What message does it send to Javi Baez if you move him back to second? He wants to be a shortstop. He's more valuable as a shortstop. He's obviously a piece of your franchise that has become unmovable.
Well, then put Addison Russell at second.
Yeah, I guess the bigger question is I'm not even like saying like, okay, well, be a professional to, Javi Baez. Like, we're still playing you every single day. We don't devalue you. The bigger question that I would have is, do I think if I move Baez back to second that it will affect his play?
Yeah,
and obviously there's no way to know until you do it, but
right.
That would be the question I'd ask. Like, if, do we think if we move Baez to second that it's going to affect him to the point in which he's not as effective as he is right now? If the answer is yes, then I sit there and go, Addison, this is the way that it works. We're
not messing up a good thing right now.
Right. And, you've got the opportunity to play second base. Listen, whether or not whether or not you feel like it was valid or not, we couldn't depend on you at this point. And this is your opportunity to prove that we can depend on you again. And by doing so, we're going to put you in the lineup at second base. And, this is your opportunity to rise to the occasion. So
I'm fascinated to see how, because that is one of those franchises that the fans are not only there for every home game, but they're still pretty exuberant for every home game. Addison Russell's a buzzkill. You know what I mean? I mean, you've got a bunch of guys on that team that are likable from a fan standpoint. Obviously, Baez and Rizzo and Chris Bryant and Kyle Schwarber and Wilson Contreras.
Not as likable now that he's looking like a snack.
Do what now?
He was more likable when he was fat.
Yeah,
fat Kyle Schwarber is way more likable than ripped Kyle Schwarber.
But from a fan standpoint, those are all kind of likable guys. They don't. I mean, I'm sure that they all have skeletons in their closet, but they're not out public. And you know where I'm going with this. Addison Russell now is a guy who is an admitted wife beater. It's a buzz. I'm fascinated to see how that changes the vibe. It's kind of inside that stadium, and maybe it doesn't. Maybe he's wearing the colors and he hits a home run that beats the Diamondbacks or whatnot, and everyone just goes, screw it. Let's win baseball
They said
games.
Screw it for Chapman. What's the difference?
Yeah, I was going to say that's a franchise that no matter how they try to take the high road,
For sure.
I didn't notice anyone struggling when Aroldis Chapman was winning a World Series. I didn't notice anyone that all of a sudden was having a moral dilemma.
But you know what I mean? This is a little different because I think it's a little different because at that point when you traded for him,
Russell doesn't throw 103 with a banging slider.
Well, when you traded for him, you basically admitted out loud, "Hey, this is what we're doing, and we hope it works, and we're not keeping him long term." I mean, that's basically what they said. We're selling a piece of our.
Backed it up. In fairness, they backed it up.
They did. So this is different. This is one of their guys. They know
Are
what.
you suggesting that you try to move him?
Oh, I think they'd move him in a heartbeat if they could move him for what they perceive.
See, I think being one of their guys makes it easier. He's one of us. We're going to bring him back. We're going to give him this chance, whatever. Because so much of the feeling around the Cubs, and I mean, look, over here lately they've been one of the best teams in baseball. They have a World Series. I get all that. But it's always kind of felt like this high road. We're just a family, almost playing Little League out here. And that's been half their dang problem at times, in my opinion.
To some degree. But when you bring him back and you go, hey, we're bringing him back and he's our shortstop, he's our second baseman, whatever, and for all intents and purposes, it's as if
fans defend their guys. Fans find a way on that second chance for their guys, and since he's one of their guys, I think it's an easier deal. It's
fascinating because we'll see whether how much of Twitter fandom is truly like real fandom,
and it's not.
Because in Twitter land, they just want him gone.
Yeah, it's not. Twitter is not representative of anything.
That's interesting.
My opinion.
Yeah, I agree with Chase. I think the perfect example is. We've now at the Jeff Calkins show, we've now become your one-stop destination for polls. You know, move over, Gold Club. We're coming for that ass.
Yeah.
The perfect example is Mark Gasol. If you just followed Twitter, you would think the majority of Memphis Grizzly fans were just hated Marc Gasol and just couldn't wait to get rid of him. But when you put it up, and I get it, I'm not suggesting that a Twitter poll is remotely scientific. But what you realize is even when you put it on a Twitter poll and you realize that most people an overwhelming majority are rooting for Mark at the Raptors and want to wish him well and thank him for what he did for a lot of really fun years. When you realize that versus what the narrative around Mark was on Twitter, it does make you realize, like, oh yeah, like vocal minority really is a thing.
Oh, it's the thing in society right now. There's no doubt about that. I completely agree. I know you got a couple of errands to run. They're going to let you go. What's your donut choice? Are you a cake donut or just the normal glazed?
Well, in fairness, I'm going to the donut hole.
Oh, never mind. I'm sorry. I was wrong.
I will not be getting donuts or donut holes at the donut hole. Yeah, I will be getting the diet plate, which I believe sits somewhere around 3,600 calories.
What the hell's on the diet plate?
Everything. Whatever the kitchen is. It's eggs, meat,
hash browns,
some breakfast potatoes, grits, or hash browns. I think that donut hole's hash brown. Like, you want hash browns? Go to Waffle House. Like, let's give credit where credit's due. Like, the Waffle House stays in its lane, but tell me anyone that's ever had good Waffle House hash browns that goes, you know what? Those weren't for me. Those really weren't. I didn't enjoy those. I think they're breakfast potatoes. They're like seasoned fries, but in a breakfast potato shape, and so those really bring the noise.
Do you get a little bit of all pork products, or do you have a pork of choice?
A Well, I'm not going to sit there and leave bacon on the table, even though I'm really craving some pit smoked ham. I mean,
Okay.
yeah, we're gonna throw a side of well done bacon on there, just
And a little
crisp
side
as
of fresh
Homer
fruit just to make you feel a little better about yourself when you leave, right?
Of course,
Hey, yeah,
of course. I mean, as Homer Simpson once famously said, is it crispy bacon? And even though the angel of death was coming to get him, yes, Homer, but not too crispy, right? No, Homer, it's perfect. Yeah, when you get that, I mean, I'm not going to leave that on the table. Even though I enjoy sausage, I found myself there are times I can do without it.
Yeah,
so,
it's my least favorite is the sausage.
Yeah, and
The little link sausage thing, that does nothing for me much usually.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
Link sausage has never been for me.
The
and
patty
I
sausage
patty-
is the better sausage.
If I'm going to have sausage, which is a very rare thing, it's going to be pattied sausage.
Yeah, and I will admit, I'm not the world's biggest breakfast food fan.
See, I don't like it really at all. Like it's only certain things I'll even eat. I don't eat. Traditional breakfast food doesn't do much for me.
But now you're
Yeah,
a big
I've
brunch
found-
guy.
Yeah.
So what is the difference between? I know there's
completely
Alcohol.
different. Alcohol. and-
Let's be real.
But I order
I
the
found-
more lunch type brunch options. I might throw some eggs on there, but there's probably gonna be like a Cornish hen or something.
so you're
sitting on top of
basically
it.
having lunch early.
Well, my
it's the
favorite
most
breakfast-
acceptable place in the world to have to drink a little too much early in the day. That's what brunch is.
Yeah, I mean, I realize that. That's why.
especially if it's a Saturday and it's a Saturday in the middle of the summer and you're not playing golf, but you're going to go home and watch generic Texas golf tournament on CBS. Man, there is no better nap than that post brunch 2:30. You're watching Andrew Landry. You're watching
Bo
Jonas
Hostler trying to
Blake,
defend home turf. That
Bo
kind of thing.
Hostler. You are watching number 115 in the FedEx Cup go and scrap and claw. Man, there's no sleep like that sleep. It's as good as it gets. And so, but I've also found that my favorite breakfast foods, this is where I really appreciate the PR team around breakfast and the really hammering home most important meal of the day. My favorite breakfast foods under any other circumstances would be considered dessert. And yet
French
at breakfast,
toast and
it's
stuff like that.
completely fine. It's nourishment at that point. So I don't know if you can really make the argument that I'm a breakfast guy, but down here, it's the donut hole's very equivalent to the guy that claims he loves Corona. Like the donut hole has nostalgia. Like I think of it when I'm down here at one of my favorite destinations in the world. And so it's a comfort element. Like the reason why you like Corona is because it reminds you of a better place. You're drinking Corona and you've just had, your miserable 48th week in a row at work, and you drink that Corona and you go, God, man, this just reminds me of when I'm at the beach and I have no worries and whatnot. So there's a positive reinforcement, and it's the same thing with the donut hole in me.
That was a very detailed answer to my question. I appreciate that, Jeffrey. Appreciate the time. Talk to you soon, bud.
All right, guys.
Thanks to Jeffrey for his long amount of time on today's show, and obviously to Chase Goodbread during his busy week leading up to the NFL Draft tonight in Nashville. We'll be back with another podcast tomorrow, as we've been telling you about. And then, Neil, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to remind you that Jeffrey Wright, Chase Goodbread, they both joined us on the Patterson and Earhart hotline. Patterson and Earhart, attorneys at law. They specialize in personal injury law, real estate law. Theirs is a general practice that can handle any of your legal needs. When you contact Patterson and Earhart, you speak to one of the partners in the firm. That's who handles your case, not some paralegal at a faceless corporate firm. They're Ole Miss guys. They're local guys. If you think you have a legal issue, you need to get in touch with them. They're going to give you their time, and that initial consultation is free. So whether you've been injured in a car wreck or have other legal issues, give them a call, 662-526-1992, or check out their website, pelaws.com. And a reminder, since we finished the podcast talking about a myriad of things, Ole Miss baseball scheduled, weather permitting, tonight against Texas A&M. It's the first game of a 3-game series. You can get tickets at OleMissTix.com, learn more at OleMissSports.com. And there's a softball story up on the site, women's softball. Tennessee comes to town this weekend starting at 6 on Friday. Admission is free. More information can be found at OleMissSports.com.
Again, back tomorrow. Check RebelGrove.com tonight for baseball coverage of the Aggies and the Rebels. We'll talk to you soon.